Oh, this is good. This shit
right?
was so good, man. It was so good. How old were you back then? Just about
I was
around.
14.
Oh, I can see where 14-year-old kids would just fucking eat this up.
Yeah, man.
And I can also see where their parents would not let them go to the arena.
Yes.
Yes.
Now my parents didn't know. Back then it's funny though because amongst the kids there was a discussion. Oh, WWF and WCW's fake, but ECW's real.
Sure.
It's like, well, it's not
Yeah.
real, but it does feel more real. It feels more
Yeah.
authentic. It
Yeah.
feels more credible, but it's not real. I
Yeah.
said that was 911. That's not 911.
I think of all the things that I've heard about our sport, and it is a sport, by the way. All the things I've heard about it was what Flair said when somebody asked him if it was fake. I think it was even on his 30 for 30 or whatever it is. He said it's not fake, it's choreographed, but it's real. In other words, they really do beat the shit out of each other. They really do get hurt. They really do, especially in this day and age, they really do lay it in. I've often thought that there's a lot of the art of wrestling that has kind of been lost because they do lay it in. And so, but it's real, no question. And people will say to me today, I've got a lot of in this area I live in. I've got a lot of people here that know who I am, especially up at the Kroger that I go to. One of the guys at Kroger the other day said, "Man, I miss the Crockett days in the '80s." I said, "Yeah, man, that's back when it was real," and we both laugh. But yeah, it's a wonderful thing. It really is. It's a pro wrestling is a wonderful thing at its core. There's a lot of bad about it, but you know what? There's a lot of bad about every job and every sport. And um, oh Lord of mercy, I'm sorry. My attention just left me. My attention's. What was I talking about?
Raven is here on a bad wheel with
Uh,
some crutches. He's really
uh-huh.
struggling to get around, even in the ring. He's got
Okay.
alongside him Blue Meanie and Stevie Richards, and there's Kimono Wanalea, who has a very short skirt, see-through skirt with a thong underneath, and
Yeah.
they're going to cut away and pay the bills for some commercials. And here's Lance Wright, who's going to be plugging the WCW pay-per-view. The ECW fan of the week is without question anyone at WCW with even a smidgen of decision-making responsibility, because obviously these brain surgeons have far too much time on their hands watching ECW on TV and videotape, trying to copy us to save their unsalvageable pay-per-views, which you would agree they most definitely should censor. Of course, he's referencing the terrible
Yeah.
ECW or WCW uncensored pay-per-view. This is
Oh.
bottom line. You guys really suck. That pay-per-view happened this same weekend, and 1 week
Uh-huh.
after this is when we would see WrestleMania 12. Of
Uh-huh.
course, ECW is not yet a part of the pay-per-view universe.
What was that real quick clip that I saw Kevin Sullivan in? Did you see that?
Kevin Sullivan used to be a part of ECW, if that's what you
Okay.
mean.
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah.
Well, there's woman.
Yep.
Okay.
They did a blinding angle like they did with JYD once upon a time with Sandman here.
Uh-huh.
And then, of course, he reveals that he really wasn't blind, and he's going to cane the ever-loving shit out of Tommy Dreamer's head here.
Uh-huh. Uh.
Yeah, that didn't feel good.
Uh-uh.
Sandman, the ECW world title. So just sort of recapping the story of how Shane Douglas, Tommy Dreamer, and Sandman's stories in ECW have intertwined,
Right.
even using some fan cam footage here. Nice storytelling where they can tie it all together.
I didn't realize that they were so heavy into telling us we sucked back then.
Well, you got to remember Paul Heyman didn't have the best exit from WCW.
Mm.
And so they're constantly going to be taking shots at WCW. And part of the reason, of course, is because Paul Heyman's being subsidized by the WWF. He's getting
Sure.
thousands of dollars a week from Vince McMahon. Although this isn't their developmental territory, it is sort of unofficial their developmental territory, I suppose.
Well, you know what? I'm glad to hear that Paul got money from the WWF. That's, that obviously helped him pay all the guys that he paid.
Yeah, he was still making payroll here in '96. As they started to expand, is when he had to
Mm.
start offering bigger contracts to keep guys like Eric Bischoff from coming and signing guys like Stevie Richards, who's in the ring, and like Raven, who's in the ring, to bigger money contracts. So in order to compete, he started to try to do that, and well, it just didn't work out. Which is why you've been a bad influence on our listeners. Brooke McGaw, who is your goddaughter,
Yes, love.
says, "Do you feel that ECW could have had longevity if Paul Heyman didn't spend all the money on cheeseburgers?"
Uh, I think, Brooke, I think Paul he spent a lot of money on cheeseburgers, but I think Paul spent the money on like whole turkeys and whole pies. And that cost him because those are very expensive. Whole sides of roast beef. Go into a barbecue restaurant and ask for the whole, you know, leg of the pig or something like that, just so he'd have a snack. So yeah, I think that's probably good.
By the way, you see
And
the
I
ECW, go
I,
ahead.
ju- I just wonder that I hope they don't have a buffet at the induction ceremony for him because he may still be eating when his name is called. I hope not, but maybe they'll have, maybe I can go there and help him chase him to the dais. I don't know, an idea.
Genovius Mack was clearly listening to our ECW banter about Cactus Jack. He says, "Tony, what was your favorite Cactus Jack match?"
Well, Denovius, that would have to go back to Halloween Havoc in '93.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be the spin the wheel, make the deal, which ended up being a Texas death match against Vader. That was absolutely a bloodbath. And Vader and Cactus Jack did not pull any punches. Tony Schiavone, if I can say that in the third person, and Jesse the Body Ventura were awash in blood because it spilled all over into us from the blows. I remember Cactus was right in our corner being hit by Vader, and the blood was just flying everywhere. So that was my favorite and most memorable one. Thanks for the question.
Another question from Bryant, who big fan of the Waterloo, Iowa Hall of Fame, which you're going to take your rightful place in July. And he says, Joey Styles is the voice of ECW. Would Tony have rather called shows solo, or did he enjoy having partners more?
Oh no, partners is the way to go. Um, I've called matches solo. Don't like doing it. I don't mind if they ask me to do it, but I don't like doing it. I really think a partner is important, and I think any partner that's worked with me knows that I give them ample opportunity to talk. I want them to be as much part of the show as me. But yeah, three-man booth, if we've kind of worked into a little bit, it's still kind of difficult. Two man's better. Four people out there is a clusterfuck. But yeah, partners, way to go.
In the ring, of course, Stevie Richards was explaining, hey, Raven has gout. He's not going to be able to wrestle. And Raven cuts a promo and says, actually, for once, Stevie's right. I'm not going to be able to defend this title tonight. And of course, Shane Douglas is like, there's no chance on God's green earth you're getting out of here. And then the match starts. I mean, the guy came to the ring on one leg wearing crutches. He's just now taking his jacket and belt off, and he's hopping around. But we got a title shot here, a title match. Raven and Shane Douglas, two OGs of ECW.
Yeah, absolutely. Then, of course, Raven came on to WCW later.
Yep, about a
And of,
year and change later.
and of course, Shane did as well.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right. So,
We got another question here from Eric Green. If you were to go through AEW's library and start putting specials together, similar to WWF Home Video, what would be your first feature? That's a great question, Tony. What would be your first feature if you were to do a Coliseum video type thing for AEW?
well, let's see. I think the first feature would be, um, I think I'd go back to Revolution 2020, right before the pandemic in Chicago. That is where, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and those of you who are with us can correct me if I'm wrong. That is where John Moxley beat Jericho, became the world champion. And that is where the Young Bucks faced Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page in one of the greatest tag team matches I've ever been seen before. It's also where Sammy Guevara wrestled Darby Allin. And that's the only matches I can remember right off the top. But that show to me was kind of what we were about. And of course, the pandemic had about a couple weeks after that and everything changed. But that was back in the heyday. That would be the first one. Go back and do Revolution 2020.
We got one more question here we should hit. Jim in Buffalo wants to know, Paul E is going into the WWE Hall of Fame Friday night. Can Tony just say one nice thing about him in honor of that?
Of course I can. I'm ribbing. We rib each other all the time, people in wrestling. We really do. Okay. I've taken the rib obviously to my podcast, but Paul E is one of the greatest talkers the business has ever seen.
Yes.
By far. Nobody can cut a promo like Paul E dangerously, even today, or Paul Heyman. And I think he is deserved of this Hall of Fame honor for many, many reasons. But I think that his ability to talk and cut a promo is far superior than almost anyone. He's one of the greatest promos ever. I mean, Flair, Cornette, Paul E, or Paul Heyman uh, are three of the greatest talkers ever. Paulie dangerously knows that to get over, you got to be able to talk, and he's able to do that. So, yeah, there you go.